All right, let's jump right into this explainer with a quote that literally sets the whole tone for what we're looking at today. The socialism I believe in is everyone working for each other, everyone having a share of the rewards. Now, Bill Shankly wasn't just some football manager. He was a master communicator. The guy profoundly understood exactly what a football club meant to a working class community. And honestly, this one sentence, it's the absolute bedrock of the massive dynasty he ended up building. Today, we are unpacking the architect of Liverpool, the Bill Shankly blueprint. We're going to explore how his foundational ideals forged Liverpool F.C.'s completely unique identity, and really look at the modern struggle to keep those exact values alive. I mean, 60 years after he first arrived on Merseyside, his presence still feels almost supernatural around the club. It sets up this fascinating case study. What actually happens when fiercely local, community-driven ideals violently collide with today's massive, multi-billion-dollar commercial sports industry? Here's a quick look at our roadmap for this explainer. First up, the architect's arrival. Number 2, a socialist football blueprint. Third, conquering the continent. Fourth, modern football versus local ideals. And finally, preserving Shankly's spirit. So, let's get right into part 1, the architect's arrival. Picture this, it's 1959. When Shankly takes over, Liverpool had been stuck languishing in Division 2 for 5 long seasons. He's stepping into a club that was, to use his own words, an absolute shambles. So what does he do? He makes these ruthless but totally necessary cuts. We're talking releasing 24 players to just completely gut and rebuild the foundation. And, well, it worked. He delivered the First Division title in 1964 and then turned around and won their first ever FA Cup the very next year. And you've got to love the sheer, cheeky confidence he brought with him from day one. When the club's chairman originally offered him the job, he asked Shankly if he wanted to manage the best club in the country. Without missing a beat, Shankly fires back, "Why? Is Matt Busby packing up?" It's brilliant. He took this decrepit setup and just instantly injected it with psychological self-importance. He basically brute forced a fierce belief into himself, the team, and, most importantly, the supporters. But here's the crucial thing. While he cleared out the playing squad, he kept the trusted staff. He held on to the famous boot room crew, guys like Fagan, Bob Paisley, and Reuben Bennett. And he actively weaponized the fan base. You see, the 1960s Beatles era meant the world was watching Liverpool, right? BBC cameras were increasingly pointing at the Cop Terrace. Shankly leaned hard into this. He pushed the idea that Anfield was a bastion of invincibility, making the spectators feel like they weren't just watching a match, but actually participating in it, literally sucking the ball into the net. Which brings us to Section 2, a socialist football blueprint. Now, it's super important to view this not as some strict political manifesto, but as Shankly's own unique cultural mechanism for building a fiercely loyal sporting institution. Think about his background. Growing up as a teenager working in the grueling mining pits of Ayrshire, he learned these really hard lessons about community, survival, and relying on the guy next to you. And he wove those exact principles straight into the fabric of the football club, creating a true unified one-club mentality. Because for him, this wasn't just about winning games of football, it was about building a mythos. He used this profound psychological motivation to elevate the expectations of a whole region rooted in working-class traditions. I mean, he famously declared he wanted to build a team so invincible they'll have to send a team from Mars to beat them. He wanted a squad that terrified opponents in the tunnel, long before they even stepped onto the grass. By binding the club's identity directly to the people of Liverpool, he created a bond where literally everyone, the owners, players, management, and the supporters on the terraces, shared in the successes and hurt together in the failures. It's actually a lot like Barcelona's famous motto, "More than a club." Shankly ensured that his team was a direct, living reflection of the city itself. Moving right along to Part 3, Conquering the Continent. Archival photos from 1964 and 1965 capture this perfectly. You can actually see the intense, physical reality of Shankly's tactical revolution. Just look at the sheer grit in the duels, like Ron Yeats battling it out at Cologne. Under Shankly, the team bounded to these incredible new heights, developing a truly formidable reputation. And not just domestically, but all across Europe. Their dominant march across the continent basically proved that a team built on local unity could go out and terrify opponents on a global stage. The record from their 64-65 European Cup run is wild. They were thrashing Reykjavik, upsetting Anderlecht, going toe-to-toe with Cologne. Shankly evolved a totally new tactical pattern during this time, pulling guys like Tommy Smith into defensive roles, which ultimately made Liverpool one of the tightest-knit sides in history. And the unbridled joy you see in the archives from this era, it perfectly captures that sort of metaphysical connection Shankly forged between the players and the local supporters. You see the supporters club just completely losing their minds celebrating their team. And remember, this is the 1960s. These fans were traveling hundreds of grueling miles across Europe to watch their side. They were fully embodying that exact shared reward concept Shankly always talked about. Which brings us to our pivotal fourth section, modern football versus local ideals. I really want you to chew on this question for a second, because what happens when a community institution transforms into a massive global product? It's a tension we're seeing across all modern sports right now. Today, the Premier League and this colossal influx of broadcasting money have taken what used to be a working man's game and turned it into a hyper-capitalist global entertainment product. The dividing lines today are, quite frankly, stark. On one side, you have the grassroots local support. These are the guardians of the Shankly legacy, and they are fiercely protective of their scouts' identity. But on the exact opposite side, you have the holy grail of modern football, the global fan base, and this endless, exhausting pursuit of the commercial revenue that's required just to keep the lights on and stay competitive at the top. So what does this pressure actually look like? Well, to survive and fund massive modern infrastructure like £100 million stadium expansions, clubs face immense pressure to prioritize global revenue over local accessibility. We're seeing rising ticket prices, marginalizing ordinary supporters, which creates a really dangerous them versus us mentality. And honestly, even club executives today find themselves grappling with this historical weight. They're sitting in boardrooms quietly asking, okay, what would Shankly have done here when they have to make these purely commercial business decisions? Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 5, Preserving Shankly's Spirit. It's definitely no accident that the group Spirit of Shankly is organized specifically as a union, rather than just your standard fan club. That's a direct callback to those 1960s foundational principles. They were born during a highly toxic period of ownership that almost pushed the club into administration. Spirit of Shankly stepped up and became a powerful, formal voice for the fans. They basically proved that the ideals Shankly instilled were still fiercely alive in the city and totally willing to fight back. And look, this isn't just about one club anymore. It is part of a much broader movement fighting against the alienation of local fans in this global race to maximize profits. The ultimate goal here is to push back against a system that increasingly views supporters merely as consumers with a wallet, rather than essential stakeholders. It's a desperate attempt to redress the balance of a sport that is in very real present danger of completely losing its soul. So, what does a working compromise actually look like? Well, it looks a lot like this proposed blueprint. It's about giving fans a small equity share, it's allowing interest-free staggered payments to ease the heavy burden of soaring ticket costs, and it's keeping the local community deeply engaged, like bringing local school kids into the stadium for free. Constructive dialogue and structural compromise, that represents the only truly viable path forward. We're going to leave you with this final thought to consider, especially when you think about the future of your own local institutions in a hyper-globalized world. Can the sheer metaphysical presence of an architect like Bill Shankly survive the greed is good era of modern sports? The tension is definitely palpable. But as we've seen throughout this explainer, the blueprint for a balanced future is absolutely there, provided the people refuse to let the spirit fade. Thanks so much for joining me today, and keep questioning the systems around you.